Greetings, friends. Cryptodamus here. Welcome back to the Cryptodamus Astrology channel. Just wanted to do a couple of updates for you. There's some interesting astrological events coming up over the next couple days and over the next couple weeks that I wanted to talk about today. And we've got one of the most favorable events of the month of April coming up this week on April 10th, 11th, and 12th as Jupiter goes into what we call Cazimi, meaning into the heart of the sun. And Jupiter, which is a benefic. So anytime a benefic goes into what we call Cazimi, which is an exact conjunction to the sun, that planet is said to benefit. So especially if it's a benefic like Venus or Jupiter, we should get really good results with that. So hopefully we can see some positive news events this week, something that's uplifting and hopeful, and bring some good news. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, happy Easter, and a happy Passover to all my Christian and Jewish followers. And it's kind of an apt symbolism, actually, because especially the Easter symbolism, because when a planet goes into combustion, which Jupiter is combust the sun right now, let's go ahead and take a look at that on my astrology software. And let me key that up here. So when a planet goes combust the sun, approaching a conjunction to the sun, which is what's going on right now, the sun is approaching the conjunction to Jupiter. And that the planet that is being approached by the sun is said to be in combustion. It's weakened. It's not visible in the night sky or in the sky because it's obscured by the sun. But traditionally, it's said to be like an old man that's dying. So it's losing strength every day. It's on its deathbed. And then, so right now, Jupiter is in that state of maximum combustion. And that will continue through about April 9th as it gets closer to the sun. So it will become in its maximum weakened state, actually. But this is a little interesting here because the sun actually benefits. Well, first of all, the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, which is spring, and the sun is getting stronger, it's getting lighter, and it's getting warmer. And the sun exalted in Aries is actually benefiting from being close to Jupiter. It's getting a kind of some good fortune and good luck from Jupiter. But Jupiter being close to the sun is being harmed actually by the state of combustion. And as we said, it's like an old man who's dying. So when it hits April 10th and it goes under 1 degree, the conjunction begins to go under 1 degree. So 2053 to 2132, that is when it starts to go Cazimi under 1 degree. And the Cazimi will be, so it will start on the 10th. It will be exact on the 11th. And we can look at the exact, basically get it to the exact time, which is going to be right around 3 o'clock, it looks like, right around 3 o'clock. So that would be a good election for a Leo rising. It would be a good election for Sagittarius and Pisces rising. You can use that election as well to get that Jupiter Cazimi as the Lord of the Ascendant. That would be good. Or if you can put Jupiter Sun conjunction on the midheaven or on the ascendant, those would also be quite favorable depending on what you're electing for. But Jupiter will be Cazimi, and it's said to be reborn in the heart of the sun, in the fiery heart of the sun. And then it comes out the other side, and the Cazimi will continue into the 12th because they'll still be in the same degree. Oh, I have it set to the hour there. So it will continue into the 12th. They will still be in the same degree. But then it will start to separate. And by the 13th, what will happen is that Jupiter will actually go back into combustion again. So it will fall out of the Cazimi and will go back into the combustion state. But now it's a newborn baby. So it's still very weak, but now it's gaining strength every day. So at least it's increasing in strength, although still weak. So there's a rebirth. So there's a death and a rebirth process through the process of combustion and Cazimi and then going back into combustion. And I think that's very That's always very interesting when it lines up, with the holiday of Easter, which is also a death and a rebirth symbolism. So that really lines up with Jupiter in astrology this week. So that's kind of, that Jupiter Cazimi is going to be one of the best. That's going to be one of the best events, hopefully, of April. Now, there's no real aspects to it, and we'll just see. We'll see what happens. So look for something positive. Wherever that falls in your own personal chart, that could also be quite positive. So again, that will be around 21 degrees, 20 to 21 degrees. The actual Cazimi will take place right around 21 degrees. So if you have anything especially anything at 21, 20, 21, 22 Aries, that would be very favored by this Cazimi, or really anything that's at 21. Fire signs would be extremely, that would be the most positive. Then we go into Friday has another important aspect this week. And this is actually, we go right into one of the more difficult aspects of April, and that is that Venus is going to be in a square to Saturn. Actually, if we go back to the Cazimi day again, which is the exact day, is going to be Tuesday, April 11th, right around 3 p.m. Pacific time on the US West Coast. But note, there's also another favorable aspect that day, as Venus, which has changed signs the day before on the 10th into Gemini, will also make a trine to Pluto in Aquarius. And so that's another favorable that can bring a kind of a deepening of intimacy, a deepening of personal connections, especially love connections. And so that's also a favorable on that Cazimi day as well. But when we get to Friday, we go into some trouble because Venus will make a square to Saturn from 4 degrees Gemini to 4 degrees Pisces, and that one is going to be more difficult. And that could be specifically more difficult news for the economy and the markets. Although, interestingly, that day, it's worth noting that Bitcoin has a very positive, favorable transit aspect that day from Jupiter. Jupiter at 22 Aries is actually going to make a sextile to the Bitcoin natal Neptune, and that could be a positive. So even though we have a general aspect negative of Venus squaring Saturn, Bitcoin itself has a big favorable that day. So maybe Bitcoin holds up a little bit better than the rest of the markets. Will be interesting to see. After that, the really big story is 5 days later as we head into the big eclipse, the first eclipse of 2023. And I've talked a lot about this in my reports and on Twitter. This looks like a kind of a challenging eclipse. I also talked about this on the Astrology podcast. 29 degrees Aries, this eclipse will hit. And it's going to be in a relatively tight square to Pluto in Aquarius, which is at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, this is interesting because it's an out of sign square. Aries and Aquarius are actually in a harmonious sextile relationship, but the eclipse itself the orb is about 0 degrees 30 minutes, and that's very, very tight. And eclipses can be, stressful, challenging events, and also squares to Pluto can be stressful, challenging events that bring breakdowns of obsolete structures and situations and experiences, and that challenge us internally with difficult internal emotional and psychological landscapes. So this eclipse is also in the 29th degree of Aries. That's called an anaretic degree. The last degree of every sign is known as an anaretic degree, and it also tends to be associated with breakdowns and some type of destruction. And then finally, the eclipse ruler is Mars, which is fallen in Cancer. So there's a lot to be concerned about in this eclipse. The square to Pluto, the anaretic degree of 29 degrees. Jupiter is combust, and Jupiter is actually kind of caught up in the eclipse here. And that can probably not favorable, because either the protective energy of Jupiter is going to be itself eclipsed and weakened or diminished, the good fortune, good luck, and protective energy of Jupiter could be diminished. The other thing that can sometimes happen is that Jupiter will actually exaggerate the problem. So that's also a possibility. So it's we've got the favorable Cazimi on April 12th, April 11th, 10th, 11th, 12th, really, and then moving into this difficult eclipse energy. And so keep your eyes open and pay attention. I think there's going to be some really interesting world events. Like I said, hopefully we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see how these kind of play out together, because the Jupiter Cazimi may actually give some protective effect as we're heading into the eclipse. Normally it might have been a bit darker. We might be feeling that kind of intensity of the eclipse energy coming in usually a few weeks before the eclipse. I don't know if that's being somewhat mitigated here by the upcoming Jupiter Cazimi. We'll see. So this eclipse, it's also, it's interesting because it's going to be squaring Pluto, which is newly in Aquarius. I said I was going to do a video on that. I'm still going to do a video on the Pluto and Aquarius, just on Pluto and Aquarius. Obviously, we've seen a lot of stuff about the new technological revolutions in AI that's coming. That's certainly been quite dominant in the headlines. We've also seen quite a bit of a power struggle over control for cryptocurrencies. Aquarius is a very important sign for crypto, and we've seen a lot of heavy-handed government regulation attempts from the United States. And I think that also has to do with the Pluto and Aquarius energy. So this eclipse it's kind of gonna be like, welcome, Pluto and Aquarius is gonna activate that Pluto and Aquarius energy, but not in a particularly gentle way, because it's that 90-degree angle square. The only, mitigating factor is the fact that it is an out of sign square. To be a true, what we would call, sign to sign square, it would really have to be, in Taurus, 0 or 1 or 2 degrees Taurus. So that would be, that would be the fixed square. That would be a fixed square. So this is a little bit more complicated because it is the out of sign square, and that may soften up the energy of this eclipse somewhat, a little bit. Not quite as dramatic as if it was in Taurus and making the fixed square. And then, 2 days later, actually, Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 21st. It's going to station retrograde in Taurus. And this whole period, of the last couple of weeks, Mercury's really slowing down. Now it's in its shadow period. It's in Taurus, which is already a kind of a slow-moving, methodical, plodding sign. So you've got Mercury really slowing down in a very slow-moving sign. So it may feel like things are really slowing down. Time itself may feel like it's slowing down. And then it's going to station very close to Uranus, which could bring some sudden, unexpected, shocking events that changes up the energy. So those are the main things we're looking at over the next 2 weeks. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. There seems to be some energy developing there's an exchange of fire and rockets and some bombings between Israel and Lebanon today. That seems to have flared up. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens there. Hopefully they can find peace again. The banking crisis seems to have resolved. We haven't seen, at least for the short-term time being, we haven't seen any new bank failures recently. The markets have been really flat and sideways, not doing a whole lot. So early April hasn't really been a super active period. News-wise, of course, President Trump was indicted, so that was a big event. This eclipse, actually, let me go back to that eclipse for a second. This eclipse at 29 degrees, we'll go back to that one on the 19th. At 29 degrees, Aries, it does make some important aspects to, well, first of all, on the Bitcoin chart, it is squaring the Bitcoin natal. it's squaring the Bitcoin natal Jupiter. And that's somewhat unfavorable. So we could see, we definitely could see a correction down for Bitcoin, and that, probably is overdue by that point. I don't know, the question is the exact timing of that is going to be really hard to say. Will it rally up right until the eclipse, or will we start to feel the energy of the eclipse before? That is hard to say, but this eclipse is not well placed in the Bitcoin natal chart. Also, it's Mars is going to be opposing the Bitcoin sun, so that's also bringing problems for Bitcoin. Mars will be on top of the USA sun, and this eclipse is square the USA Pluto. So that also could bring some type of news events having to do with the US. It's also very close to Biden's natal moon, which is at 0 Taurus. So very close to President Joe Biden's natal moon. So this is hitting some important aspects in the USA Sibley chart, and also in Joe Biden's natal chart, and also in the Bitcoin chart. So those are the things that we're going to be watching closely as we head into this eclipse. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this is some interesting information. I'm trying to educate people about the current astrological events. And hopefully we do, get some nice favorable energy. We can use this for a positive electionals if we're going to be, the Jupiter Cazimi would be good for launching any big new projects, or any work-related projects. That kind of stuff, I think would be quite favorable. So yeah, I hope this is an interesting video for you guys. Enjoy the Jupiter Cazimi, and I hope you enjoy the holiday weekend this week. And then the eclipse, we're gonna have to batten down the hatches a little bit. We could see some very rough vibrations coming through on that one. It could bring some big changes, not only in the news events, but for us personally, depending again on where that falls in your chart. And I do want to just, just promote my own website a little bit. If you haven't ever checked out my website, we've just recently revamped it. It's called the astrocryptoreport.com, because I do a lot of financial astrology for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And most of my work is done on my Patreon group, which is a financial astrology subscription service. And we do go through all the general astrology events, but also look at specifically for crypto markets, and also for stock markets. I also have a whole host of private consultations, natal chart readings, astrology tutorials. So go ahead and check out the Astro Crypto Report, astrocryptoreport.com. Check out my Patreon group, which is also where I do my most extensive detailed work. So thanks again for checking out my YouTube channel, and I'm going to do an update on Pluto in Aquarius very soon. I'm still actually researching a little bit more before I do the video. So have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.